go.
Absolutely. You know, that was the key to before we would start these inspections today, is that we would have a plan for emergency shelter and then also plan ahead for a more permanent residency. And so we have 2 of our city community centers that have been inspected this morning. They are ready to take the entire amount of tenants, the 500 if necessary. We had over 600 cots delivered last night. We have bedding. We have the Salvation Army with their mobile food truck that is ready to provide food and water. So that planning already had to be determined before we started the inspections today, if we had to move people and relocate people. Transportation was an issue too. We've been working with Metro Transit on how to transport people from here to the shelters. So all of that has been worked out. And then working, like I said, with some of our nonprofits and our foundations. They have, some have committed dollars to fund a more permanent 30-day or so residency somewhere else until we can figure out a more permanent housing for them. But all of that has to be determined before we did this today.
If you find what you think you'll find in your apartment, what are the potential penalties or what can happen to the unit and the landlord?
Potential penalties.
I'm gonna follow up on something the mayor said, then I'm gonna let Scott answer that question. In preparing for this event and this effort today, we planned for a worst case scenario. We didn't want to show up on site and not be organized. So as the mayor said, we have 2 community centers. We have a lot of partners who have provided a lot of the needs that these folks may need if in fact they have to leave this site. But I just want to make sure everybody knows that we plan for a worst case scenario depending on what we can find it. And I'm gonna let Scott talk about the legal aspect of the.
Really, what it comes down when it talks about penalties, it's really per violation, and each violation can carry up to $500 fine and 6 months in jail per violation. I also would mention, I just got word that the good thing we brought in the fire department and MUD. We had just got reported that we do have some gas leaks in a couple of the units, so we'll deal with that when we get back over there. But I mentioned gas leaks and why we brought them in, and it has paid dividends. So
Potentially dangerous.
Very potentially dangerous, yeah.
One other thing I wanted to mention too, that once we do receive a formal complaint, we have 3 to 5 days per law, per city code, per city ordinance to come in and inspect. So we are legally obligated to do so once we receive the formal complaint.
Scott, 96 complaints in such a short time, is that unusual, and why do you think so many came in?
Well, I think there's many groups that have been working with these refugees, specifically Restoring Dignity, Heartland Family Services, Lutheran Family Service, just to name a few that I've personally met out here today. They have been working with the tenants, trying to let them know what their rights are and what they should be given in a living condition in America. And with that being said, that's where a lot of it really got pushed. It took a long time with the language barrier and the efforts for them to get these folks to trust them, for one, and two, to make them understand that we're not coming in as, you know, the city trying to take over their homes or any of that. And with that being said, it took a long time for them to go and get into each of those establishments and get the complaints that were necessary.
If they're not being inspected, are the residents still allowed to be in their, units?
We have not sent anybody out of their home yet. We ask that they do step out while we do our inspections, but we have not sent anybody away from their home yet. Matter of fact, a lot of them are hanging out on their porches waiting for us to get to them.
One thing we also did is we had a message to each resident as we knocked on their door, written yesterday and translated into their language. And one of the first things that message said was, "You have done nothing wrong. This isn't your fault. We're here because of issues that we feel like with the owner and landlord of these properties."